And happy Easter. It's still the Easter season. Welcome back from the Easter holiday, from the Easter break. And today is Easter Wednesday, if there is any such term, because if there is Easter Sunday, Easter Monday, so I think the whole of this week should, there should be an Easter Wednesday today, tomorrow Easter Thursday. But welcome to this yet another new edition of Behind the Headlines. My name is Charles Odongtho, and I bring you greetings from this forum, but also a new topic this evening. Tonight we are discussing another very important topic to do with development, urban development. We are today looking at the new cities, and we are asking ourselves, are they viable? Are they feasible? Are they working out? The background, if you remember, 2019, Parliament moved after a number of proposals were made that there were a number of municipalities that had grown exponentially and deserved to be upgraded to city status. And we had Parliament discussing that, and then Parliament rolled out in transition about 15. I think the last 2 or 3 should be Entebbe, Moroto. The technocrats here and the experts will be telling us which ones. Mine is just to bring you the heads up and for the discussion. So we are going to be looking at the new cities and their viability and whether they are working out. To discuss all this, we have from my extreme left, we have here Justinian Niwagaba, who is Commissioner, Urban Administration, Ministry of Local Government. Justinian, you're most welcome to this show.
Thank you, and good evening, viewers.
Good. Justinian is representing his minister, Honorable Raphael Majezi. Should have been with us. He confirmed from yesterday, but today he told us that I'm going to send you a dangerous substitute. I'm unable to come to the studio, but next time. And thanks to the Honorable Minister, he kept his word. Next to Justinian, we have the Honorable Fabrice Rulinda. Doesn't need so much introduction to many of you. A young mayor of Kampala, of Entebbe municipality. I'm so used to Kampala. You know, they feed us, they house us. So, but Fabrice Rulinda is credited for being one of the mayors to make Entebbe municipality the cleanest city in Uganda. Fabrice, you're most welcome to this show.
Thank you so much for having me. Good evening to our viewers. And I like how Charles is trying to get more holidays into his system. I heard him talk about Easter Wednesday. Tomorrow he'll say Easter Thursday. So
yeah,
we are glad to be here.
Good to see you. Next to Honorable Fabrice is Joseph Walter Pade. Or is it Pade? Pade. Yes, he's Commissioner, Urban Development, Ministry of Lands, Housing, and Urban Development. These are the guys who have recently injected lots of cash, hundreds and hundreds of billions of shillings into the new cities from when they were municipalities. through the Uganda support for infrastructure development to the municipalities, now turned cities, USMID. And I traveled around Uganda recently and I saw the changes that they have gone through, and we are going to be discussing those, some of those, but especially the challenges that they are going through, which also exist. So thank you so much, and happy to have you here.
Yes, good evening, viewers, and thank you, Charles.
Thank you. And finally, in the studio, we have Honorable Ojara Martin Mapenduzi. Mapenduzi is the chairperson of the Local Government Accounts Committee, and they have been doing a lot of work going around the country, from west to east, from central here to north, investigating and finding out how the new cities plus other local governments are doing. Are they living up to the expectations of the lawmaker? Are they delivering service? Are they providing accountability? Are they providing value for money? Ojara, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Oladit Charles. I came back from Gulu yesterday and someone asked me to greet you.
Oh, thank you.
So I bring you greetings from Gulu, where I got it. And I greet you, the viewers.
Thank you very much, and
yes,
thanks.
yes.
I received those greetings. They come with blessings, When people think about you in your absence, yeah, you can only thank God. We are expecting to have Honorable Betty Ethel Naloima, Shadow Minister for Local Government, joining us by Zoom. The technical team will let me know. There she is. Honorable, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Charles. Good evening, viewers. Thank you so much for the invitation, though I'm joining you on Zoom. But thanks to everyone who is watching UBC tonight.
Good. I hope you're okay, Honorable, and are you picking us clearly? Can you hear us well? We can hear you well.
Charles, I'm getting you very well, and everything is okay. At least as per now, the network is very fine. It's still okay. Thank you.
Good. It will be a good discussion. So good to have you, Honorable Ethel, who is MP for Wakiso District, but Shadow Minister for Local Government.
Actually, she's the only woman, she's the only member of parliament in Uganda who got close to 500,000 votes. I think about 300,000.
Wow. Well, Honorable, congratulations. I hadn't known that bit. But let's start the discussion. Let me start by asking Justinian, who sits at the helm of local government management. First of all, last week we had a discussion here, and perhaps it is that discussion that led us into the discussion we are having today. The realization that, one, government is giving little money to the local governments. And yet the local governments are the centers of service delivery. And the question on the lips of many Ugandans is, if you had decided that 15% of the national budget should be going to, the local governments for development, why don't you send it? Two, why is the money dwindling and yet our revenue base or the envelope is increasing? Three, the question now of the challenges that the local governments and now the cities come in there. Because, so to speak, many people believe that, is it 80%? You will correct me again yourself. 80% of our people live in the villages. And so even our cities are really cities in the villages. Have these cities lived up to the billing from the time they were created? Are they making a big change? Is there a big push forward as far as the cities and their creation is concerned now as you see it?
Yeah, thank you, Charles. As to whether they are making a big push is a question asked too early. Cities, I want to bring an analogy of a human being. They're also going to grow like human beings. Cities below the age of 5, one term, for the tenure of political leadership, are also like children under 5. So these were formative stages. For example,
And do you know what the characteristic of under 5? One of them is, they call it what? Death.
yes, mortality. Yes, mortality.
So I hope that is not relating to the fear of under 5.
No, actually, we are saying as government,
Yeah.
we must make sure there is no mortality
Okay.
in the under 5. But the cities are in the formative stages. At the time of creation, for example, there was no political leadership. At the time of creation, there were no structures, because there could be no structures for non-existent organizations. And at the time of creation, there was funding, but when we look at the statistics now, there is some improvement. And even when you personally go to these cities and compare what they were in 2019 and what you see today, there is a fundamentally big difference in these very cities. Talk of, you go to Guru, whoever has gone to Guru wonder what Guru was up to prior to 2019. The change is really so big. So we must bear in mind the fact that we had to put in place structures. For example, the political leadership is now in place. We have their worship, the mayors and the councils. At that time, municipalities would be represented in the National Legislative Assembly by only one maximum, apart from Jinja that had 2 representatives. Now, each of the cities has a minimum of 3 representatives, meaning the voices of these cities, even at national level, are broader and bigger than they were before. So the fact that we talked about the budget, yes, the budget is not as big, but we see some improvements. I can share with you examples, like in 2020 and 2021, the city of Arua had a total budget of 23.2 billion. In 2022-23, it was 36, and the other cities also had an improvement in those budgets. And we want to attribute this one and thank actually the MPs for those cities, among whom one is the part of this discussion, for the voice they are making, but we still need more. Thank you very much.
Okay, before I bring in the rest here, I want to first ask the Shadow Minister whether she feels... Honorable Ethel, are you present?
Together, and I'm following, please.
Aha.
So
Now, from your experience as a Shadow Minister in charge of local government, do you see the changes, do you see in the positive direction? Was the Parliament, you know, wise enough to say, let's create the cities, it will inject impetus, it will inject more service delivery, you know, going ahead in the country?
Charles, normally for any country to think of having a city or to have another urban area as stipulated under the Local Government Act, the 3rd schedule, any city is developed but basing on the urbanization and what is expected as far as improvement in service delivery. And it's no difference as stipulated in the Local Government Act, the requirements that any city or any urban area before it's established, even the word being used, it should leave the 500,000 inhabitants present in that area. there are also some key requirements which we don't have to undermine. Issues to do with planning, issues to do with the need to ensure that that city can sustain itself, and many other things. And this is where, for us now, as the alternative government, we are seeing we are having a gap. Very true that many times there are demands that come from the population, but we are always expecting a serious analysis by the leadership in the government, in the NRM government, to see that entirely that which is requested of and which is required of is there, it can be accomplished. Today, the way you are seeing our cities, in the state you see them, it's disturbing. And let me tell you, take an example of Masaka, because once in a while, I always interact with these mayors. I even talk to the city clerks, but our cities are failing to take on as cities. In one way or the other, we are still operating municipalities. You will agree with me, all that which is said and still existing is for municipalities. It's very unfortunate that we can count that the cities are there when we are only basing on maybe political leadership, but they are facing serious challenges. That even gives us a question on demands as they may be. You can, for example, consider Masaka City. By the time it was operating, it was 48 square kilometers as a municipality, but today, as a city, having annexed the neighborhood areas, it is now covering 362 square kilometers. The budget itself, that time in Masaka municipality, which was 41 billion. Today, from what I got from the mayor, she's operating a budget of 39 billion. Far less, bigger space covered, but less budget. So that's why we are seeing that nothing should have gone. When they don't have infrastructure, when you look at even the manpower, something to run a city, there is a lot that is supposed to be done. And this is now our basis. For us, even on the other side, we are saying it's high time we merged all these areas to come one. So, Charles, we still have issues, and that's where we are.
Honorable, before I bring your colleague, Rulinda, into the discussion, let me ask you a direct but simple question. If we went back to 2019 and you were asked in Parliament whether a new cities should be established, would you vote yes for it?
At this time, I cannot allow. I can't go in for saying that we should stand for cities. Why? If we have not yet established what is required of us, we are bringing problems to the people. My argument at this hour is to ensure that those cities that are worthy. Let me give you another example. Even before I joined Parliament, there are certain areas that were so ready. Okay? Even maybe if one can look at me as one who has conflict of interest, Wakiso, with all its urbanization, as full as it is, not separating it, and by that time we could even plan fully how it could operate when it has its all the 4 municipalities, it had all right now the 9 town councils. It was supposed to be full, but somewhere people sat and they could say we divide it further, now bringing problems and chaos. So my basis and my argument is, before you can declare a city, look at the sustainability. So we are saying on the other side, don't just go for the sake of creating, because you please as many people as possible, you create a burden as far as public administration is concerned.
and then you just leave it as it is. You don't mind how they're going to operate. You are not minding about their infrastructure as far as offices are concerned. You don't even have any funding for that additional wage needed as far as civil servants are concerned to run a city. Then you create for the sake of creating. My argument is that let's not do for the sake of doing and you leave it to don't minding where it will end. So
Thank you.
if you are to operate like that, we are having a very big gap. And that's where cities are stalling somewhere.
Okay, good. Thanks a lot. Stay with us. You're definitely part of the discussion. I want to bring in your colleagues in the studio here, starting with the mayor of Entebbe municipality. Fabrice, you have heard what your colleague has said, and of course what Justinian has said. The basis for setting up, establishing the cities. Entebbe, beautiful city. Are you sustainable as a city? Do you have the requisite budget that you need to run a city? Can you say we are a grown-up, like a man, when you now say, I can marry dad? Can you sustain yourself without going back to your dad's house?
Thank you so much, Charles. First of all, I like that my woman MP, because that is my woman MP.
Yeah.
Like, I love the fact that she said she's conflicted. And I do agree.
She's honest.
Yes, and I love the fact that she is aware that she's very conflicted. And there's an element of Entebbe breaking away from Wakiso, which is a problem. But I think most of these city issues, in my opinion, are policy-related issues. For example, they passed cities, but I don't think they were ready to hand them over that status that requires a city. For example, the Constitution of Uganda only talks about one city, which is Kampala. It's the only one that's talked about in the Constitution. The rest, because even the term today, they are not called city clerks. The Constitution doesn't recognize all these other clerks that are in these new cities. They're actually still called town clerks. They're not called city clerks or municipal clerks. These are town clerks. There is a broader issue that comes from the policy and the framework, which comes from the fact of, which comes from a lot of things that we do. Remember when we had that expressway, and before operationalizing it, we realized we did not have actually a law that allowed us to collect tolls. So we had to go back to the drawing board. Same thing with these cities. First, the Honorable, what she should have mentioned to the people, is that all these cities have been given 2 billion shillings for wage, each of them additional on their budgets. Two, it is true, the issues that she's talked about is not just the infrastructure, it's not just the establishments. There's a lot of issues that come with the new cities.
Challenges.
I like the fact that Justinian talks about, the commissioner, he talks about infancy, growth, lessons, and all this. The municipalities, when they were set up, they did not come the way they are. Entebbe municipality and all the other municipalities, Wakiso itself broke from PG. We need to give some of these things time to go. I cannot tell you. It's like saying, oh, Fabrice, you're not ready to marry. No. If you give me that as an excuse, many of the people will never be allowed to leave their homes. Every day your parents will tell you you're not ready to marry. We need to take these bold decisions. We need to take these strides and ensure that we change and learn from the lessons. These new cities, or the cities that went in the first phase, should be our lessons for us that are coming in the next phase. We should have our infrastructure ready. We should have our establishments ready. We should have our places. One of the things that is become a big issue that the ministry is facing is asset division, because you find that the city that has been created wants to take the headquarters that the district where it came from is still fighting for. All these are lessons. But instead of saying, oh, let's kill them, this is the mortality you were talking about earlier. We don't kill the babies because we were not ready for them. We learn on the job. We raise them, nurture them, and give them life. Entebbe and the rest should learn. We are all learning on the job because that's what development is. That's what progress is. We learn as we go along. We create, we make sure that we create viable and profitable cities. But to say that Uganda should stay as is not actually development, is not actually change. So we need the cities, we need to progress. And if you ask me, are we ready to take on these cities? Yes, I agree. There are things that are going to be challenges, there are things that are going to be hard, but that's what makes progress. We can't stay in one place because we're scared of having challenges or issues. We need to jump, clean, create so that we develop our country.
Good. You talk of viability. How hard is it? And I'm picking this from the findings I recently came across when I traveled around these cities. I discovered that, first of all, what the commissioner from urban development is going to talk about from lands. They injected money into improving revenue generation. But it turns out it started in 2013?
Yeah,
2013, almost 10 years now, but many of them have not developed the capacity 10 years down the road, and they're still complaining. We still need this. The things as small as street lights break down, things as furniture, and they cannot replenish, they cannot maintain them. They are still asking government, central government, to give them back. Tell us about the case of Entebbe. How are you handling those challenges? Are you doing better?
I would have loved to answer this after
the commissioner,
after Honorable has spoken, because earlier on he gave me a very daunting comment. A compliment.
Where?
Earlier on. It's okay. but yes, I'd love to say that we as Entebbe are building capacity. We are growing, and I am proud of my team. I'm proud of the work they're doing. They are into a fight. Well, sometimes it gets hard because we may not agree on a way to go, but USMID, which is under Ministry of Lands and Urban Development, they've done a lot of work, and so is my ministry, local government, in capacity building. And honestly speaking, I'd love to say that much as we don't like to give credit as a country, we need to appreciate that our municipalities, our town councils and all that are actually building. One of the biggest challenges, the politics. You realize these good people train. After training, there's a new set of people that comes in, and the new set of people that come in with different ideology, different mindset. So there's a reset, and then you have to also train those. But what I would say is we have learned in Entebbe, and what we are praying that other local councils are going to learn, is that politics aside, after you finished with your campaigns and all that, let's get to work, let's get building, let's make sure that we actually get to the development. And I would not credit this to just Entebbe. If you go around, I've actually had a chance to visit fellow mayors and what they are doing. Capacity building for both the technical and the political leadership is one of the things that is actually pushing the development of those areas. So as leaders, we're learning that we need to work with our technocrats, and as technocrats, they're learning that we are partners in this thing called progress, and our goal is one, that is the development and the well-being of our people.
Good, good. Sounds good. Let me bring in Walter Pade Joseph, Commissioner in charge of urban development. Do you feel urbanization has taken root in this country from the growth of the cities? If you were asked the hard question, mark yourself, that's a very tempting question to be given. You first mark yourself, your own performance. How many would you give yourself, Paddy?
It's 100.
Yeah. to mark myself,
Yes.
honestly, I would give myself 40%.
That's a failure.
40%.
That's a failure.
Pade just gave himself a D.
It's not a failure. You know, always when you are starting, like Justinian said, you start from somewhere. But we are progressing.
Good.
We are progressing.
Speak to it.
Yeah.
There are these teething problems. When I was reading through your inadequate capacity, low revenue generation, lack of proper planning, and low level of enforcement of compliance, inadequate funding, for service delivery. How can we plug this?
Yes, thank you, Charles, and viewers out there. First and foremost, urbanization is a process.
Okay.
It's not an event. Giving the statistics, currently we are about 27% urban. And the most interesting part of it is that we get almost 80% of our GDP from the urban sector. So that shows you how viable the urban sector is at the national level. Of course, those problems are notwithstanding. When it comes to the aspect of urbanization, we are all aware that urbanization comes in with a lot of challenges. We have talked about infrastructure. You brought in the issue of revenue, all of those challenges. Those challenges are what makes us get up every morning, go to office to work, to address those challenges. As a ministry responsible for urban development, first and foremost, we have a national urban policy for this country. That national urban policy provides a framework for sustainable urbanization for this country. And the establishment of these cities is not by accident. And I do not want to go into the details of, some people have always asked me, did we really need those cities? I wouldn't wish to get there, but the issue is we have the cities here with us. How they came into formation, the mayor Entebbe has ably debated that let's give them chance. Now to address those challenges, yes, like I said, we have a policy which is targeting a number of those issues, the urban economy, the urban environment, infrastructure, issues of solid waste management, and give it. Then now you bring in the challenge of infrastructure. That's exactly what led us to bringing in the aspect of the WUSMID program. We realized that internally as a government, we do not have adequate resources. And I don't think anyone can have enough. So the WUSMID program, we designed it in such a way that there is that element of institutional strengthening, the capacity building aspect of it. And in this capacity building, we wanted to give a focus to the institution, not to individuals within the institution. What do I mean here? For instance, if
the institution being the local government.
The local government.
In this case now, the new cities.
The new cities.
Yeah.
Putting in place systems, the aspect of revenue generation, I can assure you in the recent 3 years, we have realized some improvement because we are automating through the IRAS system, where all of the revenues are now managed through an automated process. There has been some very good improvement to that effect. Certainly a lot more remains to be done, Now, in terms of infrastructure, we all know infrastructure is what moves these cities. Without infrastructure, I can assure you, you won't go anywhere. And yet this urbanization really brings in a lot of pressure onto the infrastructure that is in place. But I'm happy that under the USMID program, we have done our best, and a lot more is still being done. Government is still mobilizing for more resources. The budgets that Justinian talked about is a challenge, but we are mobilizing for resources, putting in place infrastructure, and we want, apart from the roads, we also want the infrastructure that can generate revenue. For instance, markets, under the means of local government, there's a MATIP. Even for us, under our USMID program, we have some bit of elements of markets. We did something in Entebbe. We are doing something in Arua. We are also focusing on the transportation infrastructure like bus terminals, taxi terminals. All this is meant...
Is that the type in Barara?
Well, we also have a taxi park.
Yes, in Entebbe, we have one in Tororo, in Arua.
Today I'm just a beneficiary on all angles.
So all of that is meant to make these cities self-reliant, meant to make them viable and sustainable. Now, the aspect of planning, the Honorable Minister, the Shadow Minister of Local Government, touched on something to do with the planning. Currently, apart from Jinja, I think Arua and Gulu, then Mbarara and Hoima, the rest of the cities do not have new updated plans. And that is where our priority is. We are focusing on supporting these cities to be able to plan. Once you fail in planning, then you are finished. We are mindful of that and want to make sure that planning is done. There's this challenge of the area coverage. Certainly, technically, we also find it a bit challenging, because when you look at these cities, take an example of a city like Soroti. Before it became a city, it had about maybe 10 square kilometers, but now it should be about 200 or something. And yet the 10 square kilometers has taken that city since it began as a town council. Within that 10, we have not covered in terms of development. So pushing it to 200 certainly comes with a very big challenge, because you have increased your area of operation, the aspect of the road network. It has to cover all of those areas, education, everything. And it may certainly lead to urban sprawl if we do not adequately plan. But like I said, we are planning and make sure that these cities are adequately planned. But of course, the aspect of development management, having a plan is one thing. Because I can assure you, when you get to Kampala here, most parts of the city are planned. But what is on the ground is another thing, taking as the aspect of enforcement. The aspect of enforcement also goes to the aspect of the structure. The structure for these cities has been improved. You heard the mayor saying they now have about 2 billion to recruit staff. And in that structure, law enforcement has been elevated to a level where they can manage this urban growth. The number of planners has also increased in the structure. Now, I think each city has about 6 when you look at the center and the divisions. I think we are progressing, Charles. We are moving on the right direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Honorable Mapendozi, this is the best time, I think, for you to come in. Your colleagues on the panel have talked about different transitions and a number of challenges, but talked about the good as well. And first to say that we credit you for, among other leaders, you know, for bringing Gulu to the plaudits that it got. Alongside Entebbe, Gulu is one of those cities that are said to be very clean, and I think
and growing so well.
And doing well.
Yes, it's growing
and
so well.
I think after Mbarara, Gulu is the fastest growing, I think, after Mbarara, or together with Mbarara. That's both after Kampala, and which is something credited. But there is something called, is it urbanization by legislation, where, you know, the local people say, we demand. Without, and that's where the question that Honorable is bringing up, the concern of Honorable, becomes plausible. That some people say, without any technical ideas, they will say, we want, oh, we also want a city. Then a small urban area will be made a town council. Then the municipality people will say, oh, we also want a city. If Mbarara is going to become a city, then we also want a city. And many people find that problematic. Share with us what your findings are showing from the dynamics that are going on in these cities, even in addition to what you have experienced yourself, and what is government missing to ensure that these cities and other urban areas are injected in adequate money to spur development across the country?
Thank you. Lady Charles and viewers, maybe before getting to that, before we started the program, I had said something, and the mayor of Entebbe, and maybe just to repeat, last year, when we were looking at the audit report for 2020, 2021, and in the process of interacting with different local government entities, we interacted with your team, Mr. Mayor, the Entebbe municipality team, and just to let you know, I think Entebbe is one of the entities that probably the country needs to use it to build on some of the good things that we can pick from local governments. And I mentioned that to you, so I want to thank you. It's good.
Thank you, sir. I would have clapped, but I would have been clapping alone. So
yeah,
but they don't clap.
But I want to say thank you, and as my team, I'm sure they're watching. I want to give them kudos.
Yeah,
they are extremely competent.
And Honorable Betty Nalwimba is a member of the committee I chair, and all of us said, well, we think either because Entebbe is housing the president, but leaving that aside.
So don't touch.
No. We found the team, the technical team, and the political team. Of course, the politicians that provide the leadership, the direction. So we would want many local governments to,
emulate that.
Exactly, and that helps to encourage, because all is not lost. Yeah. There are those that are not doing well, but there are those that are doing well. It's not only Entebbe, there are also quite a number of them that are doing well. But coming to what where you started from, Charles, part of the problem we have right now is that sometimes we set rules and we don't want to follow. And I'm not going to blame the technical team at the ministry, not even the political team at the Ministry of Local Government, when they started the process of having these cities created. Because there are clear policies that would have been used to help in the creation of these cities. For example, the national urban policy states very clearly how a place can become a city. There are requirements that you know, a local government entity has to meet.
What are they?
For example, it talks about the population size. A place should have attained a population size of about 300,000. And that is in the national urban policy. For a place to be declared a city, must have minimally 300,000 people in that area. And there are many other parameters, many other areas that are considered, looking at infrastructure, looking at, apart from population, looking at geographical size, should be minimally 50, you know, square kilometers. Also looks at the population per square kilometer, should be minimally 6,000, and the breakdown are there. Unfortunately, when the ministry, and I was district chairperson that time, and I participated in this process. Every time I would go to the ministry with my team. The ministry started towing that line, but a lot of pressure came, political pressure. Okay? And so we ended up having, including places that did not meet
the standards.
Exactly, the standards. Because every part of the country started advocating and said, oh no, we also have ours. We also have ours. Otherwise, we would have had only maybe about 3 places, 3 cities by now. But because the pressure became too much, and so these technical people gave up, and it became almost regional. So from the requirements or the criteria to now having a city in every region and all that.
I thank you for that candor, Honorable, because it's important for, they also serve to strengthen decision making and policy, creation of policy, but we also learn from them. If once mistakes, like Pade said, we cannot say lament. They're already here. Okay, that's a given. But I like it when we discuss with honesty and say, when mistakes are made, we should learn from them. So I would be interested, especially for people to know from you, which municipalities then met the standards. Because I remember there was talk of, is it Mbarara, there was talk of Mbale, Gulu. Which ones met the standard then?
Of course,
strictly speaking, really strictly.
Well, I love that. I always...
Charles, why would you want to put Honorable on the spot with that?
No, not Honorable. That was a fact. It was in Parliament debated. I just forgot.
But here's the question. Before you put him on a cross for this, you see,
when the two of you finish, I'll come in.
Like I said earlier, you see, Charles as my brother, he throws you in a shark's tank.
Okay,
these
so
things were created.
So you know, Charles.
Okay.
If we were to go by the requirements, if we were to go by the requirements, by now we would have probably Gulu, Mbarara, and maybe Jinja, and Mbale, perhaps. Okay? Looking at, if we are to, and I can tell you, if we are to look at the first requirement, the first parameter, population size, none of those would meet.
Actually,
with the exception of, yes.
These regional cities had been identified even through our Vision 2040.
Exactly.
Yes. We should have gone by that.
So we should have gone by that. Having Gulu, Mbarara, Mbale, Jinja, And then later on, demands that started coming in. Many came from 4 to 7 to 10 to 13, okay? Why I am bringing that? It's not lamentation. We need to play by the rules. When we have policies, we need to allow the people we have entrusted with the responsibility of implementing those policies to do it without twisting them. That's where we go wrong. Because the moment we begin to compromise those standards, we then have to struggle. Because we will have failed ourselves, and then we begin to struggle. So that is where the problem begins from. Now that has already happened. We now have 10 cities, okay?
The child has been born,
exactly,
and they have to leave.
We now have 10 cities.
Yeah.
What should have been done was to ask basic questions. Do we have what it takes to support the ministers of local government and those having these cities? And having what it takes includes having the policy frameworks in place, having the resources in place, and also having the goodwill to make sure the resources and all that are put together. There was a delay on the part of those who were putting the pieces together to have the cities. And one of the delays is to have the regulatory framework in place. Because the cities became effective on 1st of July 2020. 1st of July 2020.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, until late last year, we were still talking about guidelines for the cities. So the cities did not have. We were talking about 4 key components. One, the human resource structure. We were looking at the aspect of sharing of assets. We were looking at the aspect of financing. There were many things. And these cities did not know what to do. So they continued operating as municipalities for 2 years. And as I speak right now, there are things that are being addressed, but in piecemeal. You address one at a time. Now there is an approved human resource structure, and so the cities have been allowed to go ahead to recruit. But the problem again, Charles, as I talk right now, the cities were allowed to recruit last year. You provided the funds last year. But up to now, there are some cities that are still struggling to recruit, okay? Yesterday I got a letter from my mayor, the mayor of Gulu City, saying, Honorable, can you help? Because we have written letters to Public Service Ministry asking them for permission to recruit. They have written letters and letters to remind them. They're not responding. So who is failing his job? That is not Minister of Local Government. So the different entities that are involved should be able to do their part and do it on time so that these cities are able to offer the services they need. The other problem is because these cities, based on the provision of the Local Government Act, these cities are equivalents of district local government. So they are actually higher local government. You cannot have 2 higher local government in one area of jurisdiction. So you have Gulu District and Gulu City sharing the same compound. You have a problem because there are questions of ownership of assets and all that and space. And so when these cities were created, there should have been resources given to the cities as startup, because if you are turning Mbarara into a city, you are transforming a municipality into a city, dividing it, and the city divisions actually are equivalents of municipalities.
Yeah.
So in other words, you are creating more municipalities within the same area and also creating a city. You need to do much more to make them function. But the resources were not provided. And then also providing resources for the districts, the mother districts, let me call them mother districts, the districts where the cities were created from, giving them resources to build offices in new areas where they're supposed to move. They were not given. So as I speak right now, all the cities are in chaos. They are fighting with the mother districts, struggling for assets, but also struggling for space. Because you now have 2 political heads in one area, one trying to prove who is more powerful, when actually the mayor is the political head of the city. So the district chairman has to get off and go to a new area. But that cannot happen because they have nowhere to sit.
Okay.
So, and the Minister of Local Government last year requested Parliament to provide at least 1 billion
Yes.
for every district to start building and move in phases. The Minister of Finance failed them, did not provide that. So last week I raised this matter on the floor of Parliament, and the Prime Minister actually took it up. And I'm confident the Prime Minister will find a solution to this. We are in the budgeting process, and so these districts have to get their money and get out of the cities. Because when you go to the cities, they even don't have offices. They have nowhere to sit. The other thing, Charles, that we have to look at, when the cities were being created, every city, now leave alone the regional, every city, it's something that would be used to identify them. For example, Gulu was looked at as an agro-industrial city. The question is, how much have we done to achieve that dream? You should see that in the preparation. Because if you want to see a strong building, you start from the foundation. You're not going to start from beam level. But here, we are trying from starting to get serious.
Painting.
Exactly, painting, yeah. So,
What did you paint? Well, there's no structure.
That you build out of mud and mud
And you want to
water.
paint, then you go and bring
Then you
Plascon.
make sure you paint so nicely.
So what is important, we need to, it's not late. Yes, there are gaps we have already had, but we need to very quickly, proactively start to look at if, let's say, if Fort Portal is the tourism city of Uganda, we should deliberately do what it takes to provide the resources and the support that city needs. So that it's not that...
To support tourism.
Exactly, to support tourism. And from that effort, we can get 10 times what government is going to invest. Because the moment we put what is needed, these cities will generate a lot of income, but also create a lot of employment for the population.
Good.
If, so we need to go back to that. Look at our dream as a country. Yes, there is the Uganda Vision 2040. That gives a very beautiful impression of what the cities are. But in reality, things are, not. So we need to look at some of those gaps. And maybe just to say this in 2 or 3 sentences, the question of leadership is also key. All right? Maybe the other mayors also need to have time and learn from the mayor of Entebbe and a few other mayors. We need to raise the standard. These cities are the face of our country. And the kind of leadership that we have in the cities should be the kind of leadership that will provide that strategic direction for every city to offer something to this country. When you go to any other developed country, every city has something unique to offer, and people want to. So we need to talk about leadership in this country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Fabrice, I don't want to interrupt you while talking. So in order to do that successfully, allow us to take a break, because just now is the time to take that break. Then when we come back, I'll start with you and bring in Honorable Betty as well back to the discussion. But let's take a break right now. Don't dare switch off that TV that you're watching, because the show is just beginning. This is Behind the Headlines.
Talk with freedom. Get MTN Freedom voice bundles that don't expire. Dial *100 *21# or my MTN app for more bundles. Together, we're unstoppable.
It's the encounters with our majestic gorillas. The thrill of taking on the falls of the Nile River. The joy of discovering new traditions and a lot more. Join us at the 2023 Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo from the 26th to the 29th of April at the Commonwealth Resort, Munyonyo. Rediscover our country's uniqueness and see what the tourism sector has in store for you. Visit www.poate.co.ug to secure your spot and get set to learn, network, and explore. The Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo is brought to you by the Uganda Tourism Board in partnership with Competitiveness and Enterprise Development Projects. Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
Iwakato, this is a quick call. I'm almost out of minutes. Now, the center.
Why rush through such important conversations? Airtel Uganda has made it possible for you to call across all networks in Uganda at the best rates with the new Bona voice bundles. Stay connected anytime, anywhere, with minutes valid for calls on all networks. Dial *100*1#. Select voice bundles and select Bona voice bundles today. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Do you know your architect? Is your architect registered? An architect in Uganda is one registered with the Architects Registration Board, ARB. ARB is a statutory body mandated to regulate and maintain standards and practice of architecture in Uganda. Save money and life that is often lost in collapsing buildings as a result of employing quacks to supervise your construction sites. Remember, only registered architects have professional indemnity in the event of loss of your property. To learn more about the benefits of using a registered architect, visit www.arbuganda.go.ug now, or call us on 0781 498 823 or find us at PKF Building, Kira Road, Kampala. ARB is here to ensure professionalism in the architectural industry.
This isn't just a girl. She is the future. This is a teacher, a doctor, a community leader, our future president.
She is our family's pride, and as her father, I will protect her from child marriage and talk to her about the dangers of teenage pregnancy. We each have a role to play in empowering our teenage girls to protect them from child marriage and pregnancy, because when we empower them, we empower our nation. Protect the girl, save the nation.
Take action. Report any case of defilement or child marriage to the police or call Sawuti 116.
Are you tired of high fees and slow transfer time when sending money? Look no further. Airtel Money is here to revolutionize the way you move your money. We have revised our rates, and now sending money from Airtel to other networks in Uganda, East Africa, and to the rest of the world has never been more affordable. Plus, you can trust Airtel Money to get your money where it needs to go quickly and safely. Simply dial *185# and start sending money. Switch to Airtel Money today and experience unbeatable rates and top-notch services for all your local and international money transfer needs. Airtel Money, instant, secure, borderless.
Welcome back from the break. This is Behind the Headlines, and we are discussing the topic on cities, the viability, whether the cities are working out. Mr. Justinian talked about this is still an infant at 4 years and should be given time to grow. Granted, but is that infant not stunted? Because you know, nutritionists and the experts say the first, I think the first 1,000 days of a child is the most important. From inception, the 9 months, plus 2 more years when they have been born. So, is that stage well nurtured in this child called the city, or they have got kwashako, they have dysentery, And you know the 6 killer disease, whooping cough,
Measles, marasmus, diphtheria.
Diphtheria. Those things we used to say. Measles, whooping cough, and tetanus, those things.
The viewers can tell where Charles went to school.
Good schools, nursery.
Okay.
You know?
If you say so.
So, Fabrice,
Yeah.
you were really itching to make a rejoinder. But I like now feel free, colleagues, and Honorable Betty as well. Usually, the way we do it in the second segment, we usually have a free going discussion, as long as we can listen to each other, and the viewer out there being the most important person. So go for it.
Thank you, Charles. I had to even sit up and have this very good conversation, and I like the fact that we are comparing the cities to children. You cannot have a kid and from day one you feed this kid on beans and posho.
Or kalo.
Or kalo.
So that would be deadly.
And you expect this child to survive. The truth is, our biggest issue as cities, municipalities today is financing. I have liked how everyone tries to jump and dance around the issue, but the issue here that everybody's discussing is the financing and the planning of these cities. For example, when you have a child, however poor you are, you endeavor to make sure they get the proper nutrition. You do not try and say, you know what, because I'm poor or because I don't have resources, the child should eat whatever. The result that you get will be the kwashako and all these other things that you're talking about. You don't wash the child, you don't keep the child, and you expect this child, and then you say, has the child managed to survive? No, this is our responsibility, to nurture it and make sure that it turns out proper. For example, when we talk about all these cities, funding is still a problem. We still collect funds, send them to the central government. They take 4-6 months without coming back. And when they do come back, we have bounced checks, we have back, debts that have accumulated. We have issues even of paying as low as the cleaning staff of our municipalities and town councils and all that because of how we are dealing with our finances. 2, revenue collection is a struggle because of the country that is still recovering from a very bad hit that came from COVID-19. We are not talking about how, even as government, we would work on reviving, recapitalizing, and pushing our businesses that give the finances that these cities need to run from. When we talk about the staffing, yes, it is good. We say we will hire, we will have these people, but hire them how? He's just talked about in Gulu, they've been fighting, and we've been in Chankwanzi for a week, and I've had time to discuss with my fellow mayors. And many of them are struggling with things that come from the central government that are not arriving to us, that make our work easy. When we talk about simple things as duplicity, you find that as a city, I have things that I could be pushing, but I need NEMA to do certain things. I need UNRWA to do certain other things. So there's also that duplicity in our work that actually make it hard. You find that the viewers here or our voters are saying, oh, the roads are not being done, but there are some roads that we're not even allowed to do because they fall under, say, for example, UNRWA. We need, if we are going to be honest and say we want these cities to work, we need to be intentional. We need to be purposed and say we want the cities to work, give them the support that they need, and ensure that most of all, the financing for the bare minimum, for the basics. Get that child to age 3, then you can start telling him, you know what, you eat kalo, you eat whatever, the child's immunity and system is working properly to ensure them to survive. As Ugandans, we're resilient. We know how to operate within the bare minimums. Give us the bare minimums, allow us to operate within the policies that actually help us grow. We can't simply say, it would be very simplistic for us to say it's not working or it's working. It is work in progress, but work that we need to be intentional, honest, and very purposed to ensure the survival of these cities.
Okay. Very interesting that.
Yes.
Yes, Pade.
The mayor has wrapped it all. The issue is financing has to be provided. That is the bottom line. But we also need to work very hard as cities to generate these resources. I can assure you, indeed, the cities are doing their best. Of course, there are those policy challenges of money coming to the center. You can't access it when you need it, even after you have collected it. Then the issue of integrated planning. We want a session whereby we integrate all our planning processes. We are doing that. We bring National Water and Sewage Corporation on the planning table. We bring NEMA. We bring everyone, so that, for instance, when we are making a road, National Water does not come to cut the same road, to put their pipe across. Fortunately,
that one you won't achieve.
We are achieving it. Under our USMID program, our designs have got ducts, underground ducts. We are working on that. That one I can assure you. Of course, the major challenge we are having is a situation whereby National Water, some years back, laid their pipes in the middle of the road. Now that you are expanding the road,
do you know, Mr. Commissioner, the most annoying part? The guys from National Water will come, put their pipe in total, disregard of how the road is. And then, you, the road engineers, also come in trying to grade. You cut the pipes and you leave the water flowing there. So everyone is doing their own thing. They don't care.
And the government of Uganda money.
Yes, and now
money, actually.
The challenge we are having now, when we want to put our road, National Water tells you you have to relocate this pipe. And even what National Water is doing, they are taking advantage of that to upgrade. So you find that we are spending a lot of money on this relocation. So the issue of integration is very, very, very critical in terms of planning, and that is what we are putting all our energies in as far as planning is concerned. And then, of course, we have also emphasized to urban councils, going forward, National Water, Umeme, name it, should never put their infrastructure anywhere without approval. The local authority must approve and make sure that you are putting the pipe in the right place.
Tell me what the punishment is for flouting that rule.
No, we have got a planning, our Fiscal Planning Act provides for that. And these local authorities, they have authority to stop National Water or whoever, because right now, when it comes to relocation, it is another story. So we do not want to continue repeating the same mistakes. That
I think, Charles.
Yes, Justinian.
The discussion is taking a very nice trend. We are looking at now the requirement for government to work as one, the role of different stakeholders. For example, if Jinja is an industrial city, are we looking on at Ministry of Finance for financing? What is the role of the ministry responsible for industrialization? At this point, I want actually to thank Honorable Mapinduzi. One, he has already raised the matter of 1 billion to finance the headquarters of the districts in order for them to relocate. And as soon as that one is as soon as we get that money, we should be able now to discuss sharing of the other assets, because the other assets are really not as highly valuable as the district headquarters. Two, he mentioned the issue of equality of leadership. The ministry is looking for 115 billion to induct the leaders. The saying goes, if you think education is expensive, you try ignorance.
But also, Justinian, there is also a saying that once a tree is bent, it is very hard to straighten it at a certain age.
And that's why we want it actually to remain straight.
Can you really straighten some of our people?
No, by the way, let me say in agroforestry management, there is also pruning.
Yes. So
you just cut. You'll still make it straight.
So as long as we can get the 15 billion, really there will be national coverage of induction, and you cannot think that induction will not have any positive impact. Remember, even if there are 30 and 20 pick up the message, they can submerge the 10 that remain. Exactly. Even if it is 10, the 20 can learn from the 10. Good. For example, he has urged other leaders to go to Entebbe. Entebbe is one out of the 41 cities and municipalities. They can go and learn from one example. So really we want to look at government as a whole, which party plays which role. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then the burden of the cities will be too heavy for one institution or two or three.
Okay. And of course, the challenge we are having here also is within government. We are also behaving like co-wives when it comes to these cities. Who is doing what? Who is doing what? Like right now, a lot has come in terms of the legal framework. To be very honest, we cannot manage these cities using the current Local Governments Act.
Why?
It is not possible because...
What is the one? Tell us some three difficulties.
Difficulties, first of all, the nature of services you are rendering in this urban council is not the same with the district. Secondly, in terms of issue of development management, in the district you don't need to bother about anything. Then when you bring in, we are talking of a number of things. These challenges are unique and peculiar to urban councils and cities. You will not get maybe you may not get a serious problem of leadership, for instance, in the districts. Not to say that at the district level we don't need good leaders, but the challenge at the urban area is huge, much more bigger than in these rural areas. Now, when we say a city is equivalent to a district, is it a district? It can't be. So we also need to look at...
But some cities are, by going by the qualifications, they are bigger. Some of them are bigger than even districts.
No, it's not about numbers and size.
The complexity involved
it's not.
In terms of management.
For example, a city is managed by a cow. I mean, a district is managed by a cow. The city, its leader is not a cow. He's still a town clerk. A cow, by definition of local government, just that they are banning the director position, but a cow is a director. So you have
How about their qualification? Is in the qualification of a city or municipal clerk the same with that of
you
the
see,
cow?
that's the thing.
There's no such thing. Which is wrong.
There's no such thing as
all have masters, right?
Yes, but there's no such thing as a city clerk. In the law, it does not exist. Okay. This is still a town clerk. Okay. Now, by that definition, which brings in a complex way of handling this. But not just that. He mentioned, for example, in Gulu, I know that in Gulu, the district chairperson went and took over divisions, or is trying to take over a sub-county's offices. Because right now, the district chairman has nowhere to go. He decided, I'm moving to this place, found a sub-county, took over offices, and the conflict there is now, who is in charge, the sub-county or the district? And it's creating a confusion, but it comes back to a lot more, like I talked about, being intentional. Some of these things, even by provision, you go and look at some of our mayors today, they can't even afford a bicycle. Now, you're saying he's become a municipal or division or city mayor, but he doesn't even have a bicycle to get him to work. Now, even that alone creates a complex. That complex that you should not dismiss, that complex in itself creates a problem in execution of duties. Because now there is an issue of dominance. I am in charge here, the other one is not in charge. It creates that fight. You talked also about duplicity. There are so many people who are battling to show I am the one who's in charge. And it's coming from the fact that we have not actually streamlined both our laws and the reality on the ground. We could have as many beautiful policies as we want on paper, but unless we streamline them and make them realistic and workable on the ground, we're going to keep having issues in the urban areas.
Yeah, Thank you very much. Just a minute. I got some nice comments coming here, and I want to incorporate them in the discussions, and then you will allow me bring Pade to first bring in Honorable Betty after this. First, someone is saying the city is a total mess. The cities are a total mess. And there is no new city that has any form of planning. This is what the person is asserting. You will tell us whether it is true, because you have just said some of them have. Then the guy says, there is just kavuyo going on everywhere. The guy from Entebbe is the only one who can talk, because for them they have done well. Fabrice, you have some plaudits there.
Thank you.
Then another person says, look at parts of Nairobi. Have you seen the streets and roads lately? Oh, on another level. Then the guy says, mixing English with the Luganda, with other languages. Then he says, Kakati, those are people who are going somewhere and have real urban planners. For us, we have some jokers who should go and just continue eating and occupying space and filling up positions. Then another person says, Mbarara is a mess. I don't know what this one's reason is for saying Mbarara is a mess. He doesn't give. And then he says, no planning whatsoever. How many times have private companies wanted to build roads and have been denied, even when they had the budget and funds and were planned to build better roads than what government is doing? Have you seen the secondary cities of Kenya? Oh my. Some are way better than our unplanned Kampala. Then another person says, of course the roads are not good, but at least you can see here we drive in darkness on our roads. And then another person, I think this is the same person, who says, I was in Mombasa and the streets are well lit up. They even put these street lights as deco on the main road. Those guys do not play. Then we have a comment from Honorable Birahwa Stephen, former MP. He says, thank you very much behind the headlines. The panel is good. Cities are regional economic hubs and should be contextualized within the National Physical Development Plan, which is stuck at Cabinet. Yet the Land Policy and Physical Planning Act cannot be operationalized without the National Physical Development Plan. Also cities are headquarters of regional tier governments as per the Article 198 of the Constitution, which would correct the failures of decentralization. Kampala should be, this is not very clear, Honorable. The writing is jumbled up, unfortunately. It says, Entebbe, Mpiji, Mukono, Wakiso, and Bombo should be part of metropolitan, I think he means conurbation. Conurbation, which is the coming together of different urban centers.
Which is already the case.
Yes, Entebbe, when you look at Entebbe, Kampala.
That is not just all those that is mentioned. Fiji, Mukono, we're already part of what is called Greater Kampala.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then he says the land sector comprehensive budget should be prioritized in trillions like energy and infrastructure for at least 10 years running. Those are some of the comments. We have so many other comments that are coming up. I'm shortly going to read them much better, but let me first bring in Honorable Betty has kept quiet for a while. Honorable, are you with us? Are you seem to be enjoying the discussion so much. Honorable, there is a question of, do we have what it takes? Do we have what it takes to support the local government, the Ministry of Local Government, in order for them to build the capacity of these cities? You are a legislator, and within you fall within the correct, if I may use that word, Committee of Parliament of Local Government. That question should be best answered by you. Do we have what it takes to assist the local government ministry to build the capacity of these local governments?
Just in all we are talking about, when we're seeing how cities are really disturbed, you find that the priorities are not given to local governments. Now, local governments are general. When you look at what every time finance will prioritize, I don't know, I'm getting some reflection. Is it the side echo?
I'm getting some interruptions as well, but I can hear you. You are clear except the mobile camera.
Echo. Oh, sorry.
Can you stay there?
Oh. Is this fine for at least
That's better.
Is that mobile camera okay? Okay.
That's better.
Charles, what we are saying that the funding priority given is not working for a service delivery sector like local governments. You recall in the Local Government Act, central government has its roles, local governments have their roles. But when you look at the national budget and you look at what is given to local governments, you realize that entirely we are tending to centralization, whereby in assumption local governments are no more. If you look at an instance that at this moment, mayors do not have how to the facilities to transport them to their working places. And the Minister of Local Government, wherever he has asked for them, the cars for new cities, for mayors for new cities, those are one of the unfunded priorities we have. Another matter we have is that why should you continuously subject local governments to be the ones to be looking out for that revenue which is hard to get? Things like licenses, those rates where they are disturbed and they don't have enforcement officers, and the like. Whereas local governments help so much to collect money for the center, through income tax, just even pay, they collect pay. Even amongst local governments, you have VAT being paid, whereby everyone who buys, for example, in Wakiso, in Asana, you are buying many items that contain VAT. We are saying in one way or the other, it's high time we got a change. The kind of revenues local governments are supposed to collect. We need a better formula for sharing revenue. Let not the central government be having those clean, in quotation, those clean taxes, whereas local governments are the ones to look for those hard ones. So, and when they are helping you as central government, what you remit to them back is not worth of what they are doing. So in summary, as I get back to you people, it's high time the country fully looked at the matter of decentralization in its essence as stipulated under Article 176. And it's high time we looked further in how we prioritize the budget. If we are now today handling a budget supplementary, let's what the local governments collected, which they need to be, which needs to be approved by Parliament. Let's their local rates revenue. What is that other amount you've put for local government to see that in all the issues they are having, you are able to say that at least I'm able to allocate for each one 5 billion. So there is also a funding matter, the way it has been mentioned, which we don't have to direct, and it's a contributing factor to the thriving cities, which are almost failing to take off as anticipated. Because I'm one person who also wished to see a city appearing like a city, not a city in which state as a town council, because some of them had not yet really gained the status of municipality. So we want real cities such that there are alternatives to Kampala as the way they are supposed to be. I'm proud to be representing Entebbe as the first capital city of the country, which was, but we want to see as other entities coming in. Those entities cannot be in a good state unless finances are dedicated to cities. So in summary, Charles, what I'm trying to say is that we brought in place a child, but we denied this child all the nice proteins. We've denied the vitamins and the juice, the drinks, but the child is surviving. So that is what's happening, not only to cities, but to local governments. The question of local governments needs to be looked at, and we have to see our country whether we still need local governments in order to stay.
Thank you.
There is no need why you only do as I finalize, or as we only do omnibus planning. You send money the way you want. The cities, each of it has a comparative advantage. We need to see, can we put tourism in Fort Portal and we said it's the tourism city the way it's supposed to be? Can we go for that and cite what it's doing? So basically, it's a big question, and I know that some other time I'll be there to finalize cities and issues of decentralization as a question in this country today.
Thank you,
Charles, we are now re-centralizing everything.
Thank you,
So it's high time we looked at and did more legislation on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles, and I think I'll allow you at this time to say bye to the audience.
Okay.
Until next time.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Important issues there raised, and the question of feeding the infant on cassava, on chapati, and you could easily cause, and this question should really go to Justinian, really. You can easily cause intestinal obstruction. It is deadly for a child who is just born.
For sure.
And you are feeding the child on beans and cassava, chapati, and that's what the members are saying. That, you know, it's hard for the, and then of course, a question, I wish we had someone from Ministry of Finance, the question of funding priority. How do we do it? Why do we even call it? There is someone who complained and said, why do you call it priority if you cannot fund it?
They want to, but they
Justinian,
can't.
Yes,
is that a difficulty that you need to bring openly to the fore for discussion? And instead of bottling it up and remaining sitting back with it as your own problem, yet it is actually not your problem? Is Ministry of Finance frustrating Ministry of Local Government, or is it that there is a real challenge? Because someone might be even thinking, recently we saw reports, local governments returning money to Ministry of Finance, and then they don't get it back. So who is lying to who?
I'm still very optimistic. The fact remains that we really need special attention for the under 5, and that is in regard to financing. The good news is that 2 of the members of this panel do appropriation. If we go by what it means, they really have a big role they can play. And even what we are seeing, partly it is their efforts, but we still need more. They have a very big role to play, because whatever ministries present, these are proposals until they are approved by Parliament. True. And you can see both of the MPs are identifying the real problems, and we are extremely positive. I want to repeat, the role of developing cities cannot be for one institution. It must be for the whole of government. By the way, even the private sector plays a very big role. His Worship, the Mayor, Entebbe already alluded to that. For example, revamping the businesses so that we are able to get taxes from these businesses to finance the services. So it is a whole complex arrangement that would require a holistic approach. There are so many requirements. For example, my colleague Ipade talked about the regulatory framework. Yes, it could be a point, but for now, the guidance we got from the Attorney General was that will require a complete overhaul from the Constitution up to the lowest level of legislation, which would be either ordinances and so on. So we are not blind to it. We are alive to it. And like it was already observed, processes of government can take some time. But at one point, definitely a solution will be sought to identify the most appropriate provisions in which laws that can help us to spur development of the cities. What we pick from the comments from the listeners, actually their demands now, expectations and comparisons. For example, what is in Nairobi that we can copy, that we should be able to do. I think the whole of Kenya, they made reference to Kenya compared to Uganda. And there are different dynamics in both countries.
But that is an expression of the yearning for something better.
And they will get it, actually. The fact that there's this vehicle for them to get something better, they will get it. You will observe that over time, there have been very serious improvements, and I'm still optimistic that we shall also reach where the other countries have reached, and our cities will be as big. I want you to reflect on what Kampala was at independence time. And by the way, it was a city, and what it is now. I visited the...
How many people were there then?
Yes, not very many, but it was a city. There is a place I visited in the Scandinavian countries, and one of the presenters said, it took us not less than a century to build the infrastructure you are seeing. So really, we need to be a bit patient as we also see the progress that we are.
For us, we don't. For us, communicators, we have to continue reminding you that, hey, you made the Vision 22. It was first Vision 2020, now 2040.
Yes.
Then National Development Plan this, in 2040. We need to keep reminding you so that you don't sleep. Otherwise, but there is someone here called Patrick. Patrick Abagambe, he says, Charles, does Uganda really need the number of cities it has? We are in a country of 93,056 square miles. Even by geographical standards, we don't need enhanced administrative units as they are, albeit consideration of population. Back to the cities. I take an example of my own Hoima city, or call it Oil City. For 2 years now, the city has not finalized the recruitment process for staff. Number two, Charles. No, Charles, 2 solid years. The challenge? No budget. Why did we formulate structures that we are not ready for? Cities were formed on various grounds. That is to, for example, Fort Portal as a tourism city. What has government deliberately, we talked of purposeful, what has government deliberately done to uplift tourism in there? I think it was wrong to create cities with the political lenses as opposed to strategic growth. Justina, do you want to respond to that? Or
maybe I can...
now we are left with now 10 minutes.
Okay.
And of course, Honorable Betty has signed off. So I'm going to give each of you 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, as we plan to wind up. But if you use one, we can do 2 rounds.
Thank you.
But those number of minutes will all be yours.
Thank you. Not necessarily responding to what Patrick raised. There was a question, somebody, either a question or
a comment.
A comment. Where someone talked about planning and wondered whether any of the cities has a well laid out plan.
Yeah.
I do not want to say yes. Maybe Entebbe has a well laid plan. But for the new cities, let's be mindful that when these cities were created, many of the municipalities together with the districts, ended up agreeing to expand the boundaries. So you find like in Gulu, there are areas that were in the sub-counties of Gulu district, but they were annexed and became part of the city. So if the municipality had its own plan, now it's not a municipality, it's a city. It should now have a plan, including the annex areas. So what the cities are doing right now is to make sure they come up with new plans. Plans that would include those new areas. And they're doing that. I think the planning is where we have a bit of a concern. Because if we are going to take planning the traditional way, then probably we are not going to be able to fit into the competitive, you know, the speed at which things are changing. Charles, it is projected that by 2050, Uganda will probably be the most urbanized country in Africa. So we are not going to run away from the questions of, you know, urbanization and having the cities. Actually, the cities can create a very good platform for the country to manage. Because again, the experts are projecting that by 2050, Uganda will probably be going towards 100 million people. Right now, we are probably about 46 million or something around that. Okay? So in the next 15 years or 17 years from now, we will be, so a lot of this will be managed well if we are able to put what it takes to make sure these cities are. So the question again still goes back to our level of commitment. And I don't think we are going to solve much problem if ministries, for example, there is Ministry of Land, Lands, Housing and Urban Development. They are doing great implementing USMIT program. And then there is the Ministry of Local Government also having different program and all that. One of the things we want to see is every ministry here in Kampala at the center, if you have any program that has something to do with local governments, you cannot do it on your own. There is a mother ministry. So you have to fit yourself within that framework instead of everyone trying to run around doing their own things. Because if we empower the Ministry of Local Government to fully be in charge and coordinate everything related to local government issues, then we know who to hold accountable. But if we have got so many people playing different roles, then we find room for excuses because somebody is not doing his or our work, and then we have to be looking for who to blame. Finally, Charles, the question of legal framework. Just like Commissioner Joseph put it, and His Worship, the Mayor of Entebbe, we need to, one, we need to consider amending the Local Government Act, if that remains the legal tool that we are going to use, so that we have a lot of the things that we feel are not catered for. Of course, I think about Section 4 of the Local Government Act talks about the cities, okay? But does not go into the specific, doesn't give the breakdown that we need, because the cities now are faced with a lot of nitty-gritties that they have to deal with, and they have nowhere to run to. And the ministry says, you know, we have the Local Government Act, you can use it. But there are things that the cities are failing to deal with. Maybe I'll ask the Commissioner, how are you treating the city divisions? Because I represent Badege Laibi division in the Parliament of Uganda. And to the best of my knowledge, this is a municipality, okay? It's local council 4. But you are treating it as a municipal division. Okay. Okay? That becomes a problem. Again, we don't support that process to make sure the city divisions, which are at the level of municipalities, perform like municipalities. So there are many things that we need to work to address so we can help these cities. But I think Ugandans also need to, one, we need to know it's our duty to make sure the cities, when you go to Gulu, very early in the morning at 6 a.m., you find elderly women who are employed by the city council cleaning the streets. By about 5 a.m., they're already there. By the time you are coming out, the roads are clean. Then we have these Ugandans who, I don't know, they throw things, even here in Kampala, people throw bottles, people everywhere. We need to begin to change the way we think.
Okay.
In Rwanda, you cannot cut a tree in Kigali without getting permission, authorization from the city of Kigali. Even if you planted that tree, you don't have the right to cut it.
Okay.
But here, every open space, people want to grab it. Every tree, people look at something else. What kind of a society are we trying to build?
Okay, Joseph.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy Honorable has touched a number of things on planning. First of all, to respond to Honorable Birhawa's concern, the National Fiscal Development Plan has now been approved. It is now available. We are making all the necessary arrangements to embark on the implementation process. Two, we have cities that already have that integrated planning, where we have already now integrated the new boundaries to the old boundaries. For instance, Jinja City, you get to Mbarara City, for instance. Mbarara City, they had planned, actually the boundaries from Mbarara did not increase with the creation of the cities. It remained. Hoima City, the planning has covered the whole city. Gulu, we have recently done some work with the Global Green Growth Institute. Some work has been done, but a lot still remains to be done. And as a ministry, we are focusing on the planning aspect to make sure we cover all of these cities. But most important of all, the people element in the development process of the cities. We have a concept of the city development forums. These forums are meant to empower people, to mobilize people, to be able to participate in the development of their cities. But it's also important for us to know that these cities are not mere administrative units. They are engines of socio-economic transformation. Once we accept that, that is the time we begin giving these cities the attention they deserve. It's not just creating. It is not just rubbing the municipal council ward and you insert a city. No, it should go beyond that. And that's what we are working on. These cities have got their unique aspects. They have got comparative advantages over others. And together with the Ministry of Local Government, we are working on city branding. We want to brand these cities so that each city has got its unique identity. The tourism city of Fort Portal will have that unique identity. The industrial city of Jinja will have that unique identity, so that we develop them as per those specific attributes that they have.
Good. Thanks a lot. Fabrice. Some of the responses and then way forward.
First of all, I'd like to thank the viewers and my fellow panelists. They've been too kind to us as Entebbe, and I will go home smiling. But before all that, I want to first distance myself from my commissioner, Justinian, when he said it took a century. I pray to God we don't take a century to develop as a country. I pray to God we don't take a century to get there. But two, I also I want to say something small about what Commissioner Pade has talked about. Branding and all that is beautiful. That is part of it. But that's the cosmetic. It's the cosmetic aspect. I wanted us to look at the actual flesh and the whole body of what change will take. It will take two things. And both things include these parties being intentional. One, for the government, it has to decide that it's intentional. It wants these cities to exist, grow, and not just on paper, but actually be purpose to ensuring that they're there. That's on physical planning, on making sure that the leadership is doing the right thing, the technical people are supported, and even the financing. It will take a lot more to be done than that is being done today. I've seen my minister, Raphael Majezi, lamenting and crying that he needs that support, and my PS, to ensure that he has a ministry that is actually going to govern the people who take the primary role of governance of this country. Because actual governance or the real government of the country is at the local government level, because we are the people who interact with the people on a daily basis. The second one is where Honorable Mapinduzi had talked about, and that is our citizenship. The truth is our people do not care as much as they allude or portray on social media and all that. Because the people that you see on social media talking about the street lights, the dirt and all that are the same people that are vandalizing, are the same people that are throwing this garbage. I started a cleanup process every last Saturday of the month in Entebbe. And when we started this, there is one person who went on a platform and said, and I'm going to put it in Luganda for people to understand. He said, Kasasiro wafetu kuze tumulaba, which means we have grown up with our garbage, leave it alone. That I was being overly ambitious to say we can get rid of all these skips and everybody should take care of their garbage. We need to be intentional. When we say Entebbe is the gateway of the country, the truth is, when you land in Nairobi that everyone is talking about, or if you land in Kigali, that is a small city, the truth is, you can see this city at night, it's lit up and all that. In Entebbe, you only realize that you've reached Entebbe when the plane touches down and you feel it on the ground. You're driving, half the roads have no street lights, and this is two things. One, we don't have the funding to either fix or place lights. The second one is the people who vandalize them. These people don't come from heaven. These are Ugandans doing these things. So, as a country, both on the people in governance, because the government is you, the dear viewer. As a country, both the people in governance and the citizen, we need to be partners in development. We need to be intentional to make sure that these cities actually work. The beauty that you're seeing in Kenya, in Rwanda, and all these countries that we give as examples every day is a result of both the people that are governing and the citizen working together to ensure that their country turns out the way they want it.
Thank you very much. That's nice. Thank you. Yes, finally, Mr. Justinian.
I want to comment on the concept of strategic cities. The cities created, we have two categories, one regional and others strategic. Some of the strategic cities will not appear as highly urbanized as the regional cities, but they were picked on the basis of the strategic advantage they have. Maybe that's why the one who commented from Hoima was not seeing Hoima compared maybe to Gulu as a city. But it's because of that oil resource that it was identified. Nakasongora is supposed to be an industrial city. Therefore, the purpose, intentional support to these cities will actually focus more on the strategic cities. Moroto is for mining. And these are already approved. By the time they become operational, that will be the direction.
Maybe you can help us learn. You said Fort Portal is tourism.
Yes.
Hoima is oil city.
Oil. Jinja is industrial.
Jinja is industrial city.
Yes.
What is Arua?
Arua is regional.
Yes. Just regional.
Gulu is agro-industrial.
What is Gulu?
It's regional, but like Honorable Mapinduzi already indicated, although regional, they also picked something, a niche.
You mean there is no niche in Arua?
The niche, the strategic advantage is that it is on the border line of 3 countries.
At least call it business something.
Maybe
Give
business
us
hub or
something.
We are picking.
You can pick a name.
We are picking.
Help us pick a name.
We are picking,
you know
that is already
closer home.
Okay.
So I'm wondering why you cannot. There are so many.
What is happening? These regional cities, each of them still has got its own advantage, comparative advantage. The comparative advantage Arua has is on trade.
Yes, so you can then call it that.
And in our planning, the aspect of trade and business has been featuring very highly.
Yes.
In Arua.
Yes, you know, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
Now, for me, what I'm saying,
Yes.
call it that. Just like I went
Maybe
to...
business hub or
yes,
something, yes.
Call it a business hub, so that people know it. Yeah. It is ingrained in their minds that, you know, our strength is business orientation. And like in Fort Portal, when you go to Fort Portal, every journalist, civil servant, you know, civil society,
Tourism.
everybody, traders, business people are all talking about tourism.
Yes.
Why? Because you have said Fort Portal is the tourism city. Same with Hoima. People know that this is our oil city. You know, in Ginger, the same thing. And I'm saying this from reality that I met on the ground just recently. In Ginger, they know that we are an industrial hub. So
Arua is a trade and commerce.
Yes, make Arua, make West Nile know that we are trade-oriented.
As soon as we are done with the branding,
let Gulu know that we are agriculture-based, if that is what it is.
As soon as
and
we are
Arua has
done with
got
the
an
branding,
advantage to be accessed by two borders.
But you see,
which is unique.
my brother Charles, one I will not appear.
No, you are in his time.
Yes, sorry. Would you allow me to just use a few seconds? Something that may appear kind of controversial and not diversionary as such, but you see, we need to, apart from having the cities, we also need to see how we can begin to decongest Kampala. All right? When you go to a country like, I don't want to use Germany, let me use Tanzania. All right? They decided to move the administrative headquarters from Dar es Salaam
to Dodoma.
To Dodoma. And then make Dar es Salaam their business, you know, their commercial city, and do everything to develop it. And even in the way government works, for example, if the executive sits in Kampala, let the judiciary sit somewhere in Arua, let the legislature sit somewhere in Bale, and so every part of the country feel, you know, well, that's for another day. But
But you're just finishing a humongous parliament here. So what are you going to now take up country? State House, at least State House is in Entebbe. So
we're still the seat of power.
No, well, still, don't worry. Still, it can happen, right? We need to see how to decongest and make life better in every part of the country.
Okay, good.
So I think finally is a series of such discussions, and if you bring a whole MP here, they listen, but they can also tell us the direction. That's very important. So the levels of people you bring are extremely important, but also selection of the MDAs that may need to come. For example, what we discussed today, you are like, we don't have Minister of Finance. How do we progress?
missed only that.
Yes.
But we have
next time,
local government and lands is very critical.
True, and I'm not saying discard, but we can bring other MDAs in future so that we continue engaging, and we see how best we can have our baby survive, not stunted, and is able now, because this is a vehicle for development for
Thank
sure,
you so much.
and we shall not avoid that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Justinian. Thank you, Joseph Walter. Thank you very much, Mayor Entebbe City and MP for Bardegela Ibi. And virtually, we want to thank Honorable Betty Ethero, the Shadow Minister for Local Government. Thank you very much for a wonderful discussion and very important for national development, issues of development of the cities, matters of local government and their funding are very pertinent issues because, yes, we know it, that in policy, the local governments are the centers of delivery for development. And minus them, for whatever reason, Uganda cannot get adequate delivery of that service. So thank you very much to all of you, especially those of you who sent in their messages. I have a plethora of messages. I couldn't read all of them. Certainly we can't have all of them read, But take it that we have appreciated whatever contribution you've made through your questions and the comments. From the entire team here at Behind the Headlines, I want to thank you very much. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
It's the encounters with our majestic gorillas, the thrill of taking on the falls of the Nile River, the joy of discovering new traditions, and a lot more. Join us at the 2023 Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo from the 26th to the 29th of April at the Commonwealth Resort, Munyonyo. Rediscover our country's uniqueness and see what the tourism sector has in store for you. Visit www.poate.co.ug to secure your spot and get set to learn, network, and explore. The Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo is brought to you by the Uganda Tourism Board in partnership with Competitiveness and Enterprise Development Projects. Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
This isn't just a girl. She is the future. This is a teacher, a doctor, a community leader, our future president.
She is the hope of our community. And as a community leader, I will talk to others about how we must protect her against child marriage and teenage pregnancy because it affects us all. We each have a role to play in empowering our teenage girls to protect them from pregnancy. Because when we empower them, we empower our nation. Protect the girl, save the nation.
Take action. Report any case of defilement or child marriage to the police or call Sauti 116.
.3 Kampala, 96.9 Mbale, 95.7 Jinja, 98.6 Soroti. You are all covered.
UBC Butego. UBC Butego.
The quest, giver of life, Alpha without Omega,